The Iran War has reached the Korean Peninsula not with a missile or a warship, but through a blank space on a military calendar. In September, American and South Korean Marines were supposed to rehearse one of the alliance's hardest missions, moving a large force from sea to shore under pressure. That rehearsal, Exercise Sangyong, has now been canceled after the United States said its forces were not available because of demands created by the Iran War. Washington formally delivered that message to South Korea in June. The decision became public in August, just weeks before the exercise was expected to begin. No American base in Korea has closed, no treaty has been suspended. The roughly 28,500 U.S. troops on the peninsula remain in place. But a future rehearsal disappeared because forces were needed somewhere else. That makes this cancellation more revealing than a simple count of ships, aircraft, or troops. It raises the question at the center of American strategy. Can the United States sustain credible deterrence in two distant theaters at the same time? The answer is not found only in how many forces America owns. It is found in which forces are available when they are ready, and what training gets sacrificed. Sangyong, Korean for Double Dragon, is not a ceremonial beach landing staged for cameras. It is a complicated test of whether two militaries can operate as one. Amphibious operations compress nearly every military problem into a narrow window: intelligence, air defense, naval protection, logistics, communications, engineering, aviation, and command authority. Ships must arrive in sequence. Aircraft must clear and protect routes. Landing craft and armored vehicles must reach the right beach while troops, fuel, ammunition, and medical support keep moving. If one link falls behind, the entire operation can stall at the shoreline. That is why amphibious proficiency is difficult to preserve through presentations or computer screens alone. The scale has varied by year, and the canceled 2026 plan has not been publicly detailed. But this alliance's recent history shows what Sangyong can involve. In 2024, more than 13,000 American and South Korean sailors and Marines participated, joined by British commandos and supported by other Korean military branches. That exercise included dozens of aircraft, among them American F-35B fighters, along with transport ships, helicopters, drones, and division-level landing forces. It also featured the first amphibious assault in Korea by the U.S. Marine Corps' new amphibious combat vehicle, turning the exercise into a test of unfamiliar equipment. Those figures do not describe the canceled exercise. They show the kind of organizational weight hidden behind the name on the calendar. For a large landing drill, availability means more than finding several hundred Marines. It means aligning ships, aviation, vehicles, maintenance, ammunition, crews, and certification windows. Marine expeditionary units are designed to respond quickly, yet they are not spare pieces waiting in storage. They deploy as integrated teams with ships, aircraft, and landing forces. The Iran War placed an immediate claim on exactly that kind of mobile force. In March, the United States sent thousands of additional sailors and Marines toward the Middle East as the conflict expanded and operations around Iranian ports intensified. One Marine expeditionary unit was dispatched from the Indo-Pacific. Another, built around the USS Boxer, left the American West Coast roughly 3 weeks earlier than planned. Together, those movements were expected to place 2 expeditionary units in the Middle East, adding flexible options for boarding ships, protecting forces, evacuating civilians, or conducting raids. The point is not that Washington publicly identified either unit as the missing piece of Sangyong. It did not. The point is that the same limited pool of amphibious forces was being asked to answer a new urgent demand far from the Korean Peninsula. By late April and May, Marines from the Indo-Pacific-based 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit were conducting maritime interception operations under U.S. Central Command. They boarded commercial vessels as part of the effort to enforce the blockade of Iranian ports. That was a real mission with immediate consequences, not a hypothetical contingency. The American notification canceling Sangyong followed in June, while the Middle East commitment was still consuming ships, crews, aircraft, and planning attention. Public information does not establish a one-unit, one-exercise chain of causation, but the sequence exposes the pressure created when specialized forces are pulled across combatant command boundaries. By July, the 31st Unit was returning to Okinawa. Yet returning to home station does not make a formation instantly ready for another major deployment or exercise. Aircraft and vehicles must be inspected. Ships need maintenance. Personnel need recovery time. Equipment used at sea must be repaired, replaced, and reloaded. Then the team must rebuild proficiency for the next mission. Readiness is a cycle, not a switch that can be turned back on when a ship crosses a boundary. That cycle matters because the Iran commitment has not ended. In August, the Pentagon said the naval blockade could be sustained indefinitely through rotations. At that point, tens of thousands of American personnel and more than 20 warships were supporting the campaign, while strikes and maritime enforcement continued. The aircraft carrier George Washington was operating in the Arabian Sea days before the Korean cancellation became public. This was a continuing demand signal, not a completed surge. Rotations can make a mission sustainable inside one theater. They do not make the same force simultaneously available everywhere else. Every replacement sent forward begins preparing months earlier. Every extended deployment affects maintenance later. Every accelerated departure can displace training that was already booked. This is how a war produces strategic costs beyond the battlefield. The first visible bill may not be a lost weapon. It may be a lost rehearsal. The Korean case is especially important because Songyong was not the only exercise reduced this month. Ulchi Freedom Shield, at the Alliance's main summer command exercise, was originally scheduled to run for 11 days. It ended after 5. The 14 planned combined field training events were cut to 7. Some live events moved into simulation, and the expected counteroffensive phase was canceled. President Trump said the exercise was too expensive and objected that South Korea had not joined the Iran war. He also pointed to his desired diplomacy with Kim Jong-un. That decision and the Songyong cancellation are related in effect, but different in cause. Ulchi Freedom Shield was shortened by a presidential political decision. Songyong was canceled after the military cited force availability constraints connected to an active war. Blurring those explanations would hide the deeper problem. One reduction was discretionary. The other revealed that Washington's menu of choices had already narrowed. The Pentagon says the essential objectives of Ulchi Freedom Shield were preserved and that the reduction did not degrade American training goals. That claim deserves to be included. A shorter exercise is not automatically a useless exercise, and simulation can efficiently test headquarters against complex scenarios. Digital environments can inject missile attacks, cyber disruptions, and difficult command decisions without moving thousands of people. They can repeat problems quickly, and modern forces need that kind of rehearsal. But simulation and field training answer different questions. A computer can tell a headquarters that a fuel convoy arrived. A live exercise reveals whether drivers found the route, radios connected, bridges held, and supplies reached the right unit. A simulation can represent an amphibious landing. It cannot reproduce sea state, mechanical breakdowns, crowded decks, exhausted crews, or vehicles struggling through unfamiliar terrain. It also cannot fully test the human relationships that make a combined force function when plans fail. American and South Korean units use different equipment, procedures, languages, and chains of command. Interoperability is the practiced ability to bridge those differences under time pressure. That ability decays quietly. A staff may retain its plan while losing familiarity with the people, systems, and physical sequence required to execute it. Exercises are therefore more than demonstrations aimed at North Korea. They are diagnostic tools for the alliance itself. They reveal incompatible software, misunderstood orders, missing spare parts, weak communications, and logistical assumptions that looked reasonable until real units tried to move. Canceling one exercise does not erase decades of cooperation, but it removes one opportunity to discover those failures before an emergency discovers them instead.